We're good to go whenever you are ready.
All right, sounds good. Welcome everyone to SEC Boys. This is the Trev and Lev Award Show and also the inaugural episode of the SEC Boys, which is an extension of Vol Boys Media, where we look around the SEC through orange tinted glasses. So we're excited to get it going tonight, handing out a few September awards around the SEC. We've got 9 awards to hand out tonight. I'm excited to get it started. First up, I'd like to go with the Most Improved Team Award. And for me, we're going to start out with Missouri. Now, last season, Missouri had a 2-3 record in September through the first 5 games. This year, they are 5-0 and currently ranked 21. Um, Obviously, I think the quality of opponent last year was slightly tougher. They had Georgia in week 5. They've already played Kansas. They also played Kansas State last season, got smoked. Obviously beat Kansas State in a nail biter this year in a 30-27 game. 5-0 is a pretty impressive start for Missouri, whose ceiling typically is 7 or 8 wins. This is looking like a season where they could potentially surpass that. We're gonna really find out a lot about them this Saturday when they play LSU. It should be an interesting game. But
Yep.
yeah, it's pretty simple. I think they're definitely the most improved team in the SEC. So yeah, we got off to Levi.
Yeah, and I'm gonna have to agree with you. So Missouri's also my most improved team of the year, mainly because I just did not expect them to be as good this year as they have been. I was thinking they were going to be bottom two in the SEC East. I just did not see them being 5-0 at this point in the season. To be fair, I hadn't looked at their schedule. They haven't played an insanely tough schedule. They've got Kansas State, which was a really good win and a really good game, but they haven't gotten into the thick of the SEC schedule yet. So we'll see how they pan out in the rest of their SEC schedule. But I think honestly, they're probably going to win at least 8 games, which is really good for them. Maybe even more. It just kind of depends on how the rest of their season goes. But yeah, they've definitely surprised me. They're definitely the most improved team going into this year so far. Now, will it be the same? Will I be saying the same thing at the end of the season? That's what we'll have to see. But as of right now, they're my most improved team. But
So
oh,
next up,
yeah,
yeah. Next up, we're gonna have the most disappointing team so far in September. I put Georgia. They're 5-0 right now, but looking so far at their schedule, they haven't played anybody. They've played a lot of close games, including a 27-20 win last week against Auburn. That, of course, was on the road. They're not playing Georgia football right now, and up to standard of their football. As far as the past 2 seasons have gone, they just have looked very beatable this year, which is not something we have seen. Um, the past 2 seasons, obviously. For that reason, I'm going with them as my most disappointing team. I just they haven't looked dominant like they have in years past. Offense has some issues. Defense hasn't looked nearly as good. They're very beatable, and
yep.
they're still number 1 team in the country according to the AP poll. Probably shouldn't be, but we're gonna find out a little bit more about them this Saturday as well, whenever they go play Kentucky at home.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to live up to what their team was last year going undefeated. So I mean, I agree with you to some extent. I do think that they have been pretty disappointing, and I would say their fans are probably disappointed with the way they've been playing. But to me, I think LSU is the more disappointing team
Uh-huh.
this year, just because I don't know, everyone was picking them to win the West, and honestly, I kind of thought they might would win the West too, and it's just everyone was expecting them to be the front runner. Maybe some other people were thinking Alabama, which they've also been kind of disappointing. Really, the SEC as a whole has
Yeah,
been disappointing this
yeah.
year. But to me, LSU just stands out just because the way everyone was picking them to be the favorite in the West, or a lot of people were, some people were even picking them to go to the playoffs, and now they're sitting 3-2 with
Hmm.
losses to Ole Miss and Florida State. Granted, those are both pretty good teams, but the Florida State one is less embarrassing. But that Ole Miss loss, it kind of just sealed the deal for them this year that this season's not going to end up with a championship or anything. They're pretty much guaranteed to not make the SEC championship,
Yeah,
which they made last year. So to me, that just seals the deal to me for them being the most disappointing team, just because of the expectation and where they were last year compared to where their trajectory is right now for the season. So that's
I
why
would.
I'd say them.
Yeah, I mean, I would say they were an honorable mention for me for sure. I would say that Florida State loss is very embarrassing. I mean, that game was not really close at all. And
Yeah,
also, on top of that, they've lost the two most important games on their schedule this year. They still
yeah,
have a full slate of SEC games left, including Bama, A&M. Uh, you got Missouri next this Saturday. So they've got some tough games to get
and they have
through.
a really bad defense right now.
Their secondary is horrible, horrendous. I mean, it lost them the game last week against Ole Miss, right?
Yeah. I really honestly don't know where they're going to go from here the rest of the season. I'm not sure how many more games they're going to win.
Yeah.
Just because they just haven't played good, in my
Nope.
opinion. And
They have not.
everyone was picking them to win the West, or a lot of people were, and
Yeah.
it's just mind-boggling to me. But I'll let you get the next one.
All right. Next up, we got best offense in the SEC. Here we go. I am actually going to go with LSU. Uh, so we just talked about him, right? Just
Yep.
talked about the Tigers as the most disappointing team. Now I'm going to say they're most disappointing on the defensive side of the football because their offense is doing things to win the game for them. Barring that Florida State week 1 game, obviously didn't score a lot in that first game, right?
Yep.
But you've got enough points. 49 points is more than enough to beat an SEC team. The offense did enough to win last Saturday. I think the offense is the reason why they've won 3 games so far and why they were competitive in that Ole Miss game. I think the offense is another reason why they will continue uh, to put up big numbers. And it really comes down to the defense for them, in my opinion. And I think their offense is good enough to win them some games in the SEC. I mean, it's not a championship team because of that defense right there. But I just want to point out a couple stats real quick. So offensive leaders, total yards, LSU is fourth in the country with 551.4 yards a game. And then you look at the SEC, they are first in passing at 353.4 yards a game, and then first in total yards at 551.4 yards a game. Their offense is putting up huge numbers. I do not have their scoring numbers right here, but you're I mean the stats speak for themselves. I think that they're putting up huge yardage, and it it's the thing that's going to win them some games. Obviously not a lot of games. I don't think maybe 8 9 games. They're averaging 44 points a game right now. I mean, we just talked about how disappointing they are, but here I am bragging on their offense. But I think right now in the SEC, that's having really a lot of quarterback struggles, which is causing a lot of offensive struggles. Um, LSU's the best right now.
I'd agree to some extent. I think it's pretty close between LSU and Ole Miss. I think LSU has slightly better stats, and it's kind of a toss-up. I don't know. This one was pretty hard for me to choose just because every SEC offense right now is not looking great. Like I'm looking uh, at the statistics right now, and Tennessee is number 4,
Hmm.
and that to me is wild because Tennessee has not been good offensively this year. so far,
Yeah,
and they're number four.
not compared to last year.
Well, even just to me, they just haven't really felt that great offensively, and they're
Yeah.
number four in the SEC. So this one was a hard one for me to pick. I think LSU's a good answer. I think it's definitely one of these two teams that we have.
I agree. Yep.
LSU might be the better answer, but I'm gonna go with Ole Miss mainly because they ended up winning against LSU.
Yeah, that's fair.
But a lot of that can be attributed to LSU's defense being bad. But I mean,
Mhm.
Ole Miss's defense isn't great either. So it's kind of a coin toss between the two for me, and they're pretty even. So I could see either one being the better offense, and who knows how it'll be at the end of the season. We'll just
Yeah.
have to see. But
I think a key difference right here for me is just the Ole Miss only put up 10 points against Bama.
yeah,
And you look at that, and Bama only scored 24 on them, right? So you look at that score and you say Ole Miss is in a prime position to win that football game, right?
hmm
But their offense couldn't pull through. So it's going to be really interesting later in the year whenever LSU and Alabama play, what LSU's offense looks against that
yeah,
stiff Bama defense.
I agree.
All right, so up next we have best defense. And I went with Alabama. So that being said, all that being said, Alabama is the best defense in my opinion right now in the SEC. Um, I Alabama's offense is so down right now that Alabama's defense is the thing that is winning the football games. Only allowing 14.2 points a game, which is second in the SEC. And they are fifth in the SEC in yards allowed at 298.2 yards allowed per game. Um, so they're second to Georgia in points allowed. I You look at quality of opponents Georgia's played compared to quality of opponents Alabama's played, and it's a huge difference. That 1.2 points a game is huge in my opinion because Bama's already played a very good Texas offense who will be joining the SEC next year and a very good, your best offense in the country or in the SEC. And they're only allowing 14 points a game right now. I think the defense is the reason why they are winning games, as I mentioned before. And I think it's going to be really solid and it's going to be really tough for anyone to beat Bama the rest of the way just because of that defense. If you're keeping them at 14 points a game, you're not asking a lot of your offense, right?
hmm
So that they're going to be in a lot of close games this year. It's going to be really interesting to see them play A&M's offense, who's pretty good, right?
Yeah.
Statistically, they're not top five in the SEC, but they've been able to move the ball even with the backup, right? Max Johnson, who's stepped in for their quarterback, who's out for the season. But yeah, I think honorable mention for me would have to be Georgia, and in my personal opinion, there's a huge gap between Georgia and Alabama defensively in the SEC. I know you differ with me a little bit.
hmm I don't know. This year, none of the defenses overall have looked necessarily great, in my opinion, compared
Yeah.
to what maybe they have been in the past. The reason I chose who I chose is because they have a really good defensive line right now. They're also on the NCAA website. They're actually in total defense. They're ranked number five. I'm not sure what all the metrics go into that or how they pull it out. I don't know, if you look up NCAA college football defensive rankings, the first is Penn State, then Air Force, so then Ohio, then Michigan, then A&M's number five. So I'm
hmm
not sure what all goes into that, but the main reason I picked Texas A&M is because they have a really good defensive line. Similar, Tennessee is another team that has a really good defensive line this year so far, and so it's hard for me to choose a best defense just because nothing's really stood out to me. So just picking out a position group, A&M's D line is one that sticks out to me. But Alabama, I guess they're really good. They haven't let people score on them a lot, which is what makes a good defense. So it's hard it's hard to choose, but I'm gonna go with A&M just because that position group's really, really good. Both teams, both A&M and Alabama, have lost a game, so it's not like their defenses are unstoppable, but really none of the teams in the SEC have unstoppable defenses right now. Not even
Mhm.
Georgia, who
Right.
was what people thought would be the unstoppable defense. So, I don't know, this one's a tough one too. It could really be any of the teams of those three, Alabama, A&M, and Georgia, but they all have each have things about their defenses that are not don't make that aren't superior, like they aren't like amazing. So it's just like there's a little bit of this, a little bit of that. They're all kind of iffy, but still the best of the SEC. But oh,
Yeah, Texas A&M is allowing 22 yards less per game than any other SEC team. They're first in the country. Um, I don't know. I just feel like they played a really good Miami offense, right?
uh-huh.
And they lost that game.
What was the
Uh,
score of that game?
that game it was 48-33. Um,
So that wasn't a very good defensive performance. I'd say outside
not
of
very
that
good.
game, though, they've had a pretty good defense all year, though.
Yeah,
Outside of that
other
game,
than that though, the best two opponents they played is Arkansas and Auburn,
that's
which
fair. That's fair.
I would also argue are not very good offenses. Arkansas's got a great quarterback. Um, but yeah, no, I agree with you. I think it's going to be a tough test for
Well,
anybody,
then,
right? I mean, they got Bama this week,
yeah.
who only wants to run the ball, right? So that's going to be an interesting matchup. And then they got us the week after. So
Well, the thing with A&M and Alabama is both of them lost to the best teams they've played so far.
yeah,
So it's just kind of like you don't really if you're basing a lot of what you think about teams off of their good games, and their good games haven't been against great teams. So it's
hmm
hard to kind of gauge it. Alabama has played Ole Miss though, so that kind of helps you
yeah.
judge that. That's a really good offense. So I could see that. I could see maybe picking Alabama too. It kind of just goes
I,
back and
yeah.
forth, I guess.
I mean, at the same time, like we said, this is just September. Most of these games are non-conference, so you don't have a lot to go off of, right? Once you get into October, it's pretty much all SEC matchups, and that's where you start handing out awards for teams that have really proven it on the field. But yeah, I mean, I I think you make some good points about A&M for sure.
Hmm.
Um, so next award to give out is best uniform. This one, I think there's there's a huge gap in my opinion. This is obviously personal preference. I'm going dark mode for Tennessee. I mean, this might be one of the best uniform combos in the country. Um, just kind of a fun award right here. I say an honorable mention for me is the Ole Miss powder blues, or almost any Ole Miss alternate uniform is pretty clean. But I don't know, something about this uniform combo with paired with a night game and Neyland. I don't know, it's unmatched. I think we've performed really well in the dark mode uniforms. They are literally Halloween in the uniform.
Both Shane
I
Beamer's
just
losses to Tennessee have been against the dark mode
Yep,
jerseys.
yep. And the first year was even clean with the white helmet, but
Yeah,
the black helmet is, I don't know. I think it's a perfect combo in my opinion.
and uh, I don't know. I've got one too, and it's the same. I agree with Trevor. The jerseys are just so clean. I know, and
Yeah,
anyone who's watching this is gonna be like, oh, they're Tennessee fans, they're biased. But you cannot tell me these jerseys are not clean.
yeah,
Like the orange pops, like the black
yeah. It does.
black with the it just looks so clean, and it's just the players play better when they're wearing them. They take the whole look good, play better, or however that saying goes, or like what how's that go? The
Look, feel good, play. Wait, look good, play good.
So,
I
it's
don't
something like
know.
that. They take that to heart when they're wearing these. I don't know. I just
Yeah,
love them. They're not the traditional UT jerseys, and I wouldn't want to wear them every single game.
no.
But it's nice. It's nice breaking them out once a season and getting to see how good they look. But
Hey,
that's who I'd pick.
another honorable mention for me is Missouri somehow always has good uniforms. I think they wear a different uniform like every single week, but
Yeah,
those yellow helmets are clean.
yeah. I like their helmets.
Yeah.
I like the block M honestly. I know it kind of looks like
Yeah,
it
Michigan.
looks like Michigan, but I still think it looks nice. And I
Yeah,
don't know, they've got a lot of different logos that
even that like
they switch
that
between.
that retro tiger is clean
Oh
too.
yeah, that one's good. I
Yeah, that
forgot
one's
about that
clean.
one.
Yeah, I don't think
I don't
they've
know.
worn that yet, but
I like alternate uniforms a lot, but
oh yeah,
I don't want Tennessee to have too many just cause traditions, but it's nice whenever we do break out some. I wouldn't
yeah,
mind switching up the helmets a little bit, but I don't know. I think black and orange is really all the difference they're gonna make in them, at least for the time being. But
yeah. The orange and white inverted helmet.
yeah, that's about
I don't
it.
know if we'll wear that again, but
I don't know. They might break it out for like the Vandy game or something like that. They won't break it
yeah,
out in a good game though.
yeah. All right, last four here. So we're kind of getting to the cream of the crop. These are the last four awards, the biggest awards for sure. We can get into best team, and I'm gonna give that to Georgia. Now I said they're the most disappointing, but we can all agree this is a down year for the SEC, big time. They might be the third or fourth best Power Five conference, and years past they've obviously dominated. Georgia's going to be the best team until they lose, and they might not lose this year. So they will be the best team in the SEC until they lose, and even then, they might still be the best team in the SEC. That they're it's really tough because I feel like this season there is a lot of middle of the pack SEC teams that fit middle in the middle of the country in general.
Hmm.
Um, I think it's good for competition because a lot of games have been competitive this year, and I think continue will continue to be competitive. And I think a lot of teams will beat teams that they shouldn't. And but it's hard to crown the best team in a conference that hasn't been great. But I think that's Georgia because they're the team to beat.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a hard one to pick too, because every team in the SEC's look bad, and it's like I don't want to pick a one-loss team to be the best team in the SEC.
Yeah,
And so that means I have to pick between Kentucky, Missouri, and Georgia. And of course, I'm not going to pick Kentucky or Missouri.
yeah,
So it kind of leaves you with having to pick Georgia. And so at the moment, I'm going to say Georgia is the best team.
yeah. I
But
mean, there's no
I
yeah,
really don't know how the season's going to pan out. Is Georgia going to be the
right.
best team by the end of the year? I don't know.
And
They
see, I
could
wouldn't even I wouldn't even say like they're the best performing team of September. I
no.
mean, I'd probably give that to Missouri. I don't know. Whoever has the biggest wins, and I'd say right now that's probably Missouri, but they've beaten is Kansas State.
To me, Georgia really just
So
seems like a team that's going to play to its competition.
yeah, I agree.
So they could lose any game, but they're most likely going to win every single game. And that's kind of
Yep.
how they've played all season. And
And that's kind of how
so,
they played last year a little bit until the very end. So
yeah, they showed up for the Tennessee game more so
yeah.
than most teams. They destroyed TCU. They had some blowouts in there. It's
Hmm.
definitely not the same as last year. Last year they had some close games, but for the most part they were still beating teams pretty handedly. They just had the occasional like Missouri game, or there was a few other games that I can't remember exactly which ones, but where they kept it kind of close. But this year it's just felt like every single game's been close. They kept it close with South Carolina, who is horrible.
Yeah.
South Carolina is not a good team. They have maybe one or two, three good players on their team, but overall
Mhm.
they're a horrible team, and they kept it close with. They were beating Georgia at halftime, and so it's just I don't know. At the moment, I'm going to say they're the best team, but I really don't know if they're going to be the best team by the end of the season. But that's just what I
You're
think.
I mean, you're right though. You can't like justify giving it to a team with one loss right now and picking out of the three undefeateds. Georgia's by far the best one. I
Yeah.
mean, we're gonna find out this Saturday if Kentucky can compete with them.
Uh-huh.
They're so one-dimensional. I don't think that they can. I mean, it'll be close because that's how Georgia's played games. But looking at the 4-1 teams right now, you can't justify saying Bama's the best team in the SEC. You can't justify saying Texas A&M is the best team.
Or Tennessee.
uh, no, there's an argument For Ole Miss, um, they have a ranked win against Tulane, who was ranked at the
But then
time
they
on the
lost to
road.
Alabama though.
They did,
So if
yeah.
you're gonna say
But then they beat
Alabama is
LSU.
not,
I don't. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
it's like every
They,
team's about the
yeah,
same in all honesty.
yeah,
All the best teams are about the same, and all the worst teams are about the same. So it's
right.
just kind of weird.
All I'm saying is they did have two ranked wins in September,
Yeah,
Tulane and LSU,
yeah,
and one was on the road. But I mean, I don't think you can justify it because they lost a ranked game as well. Uh, Georgia has not played a ranked team yet.
yep.
They have three ranked teams on the schedule so far. Actually, four.
And
Uh,
one's this week, so we'll see how
yep.
they pan out this week. And I
Yeah,
think they will win that game.
I agree.
Honestly, I would not be surprised if they blow them out because
I wouldn't either.
I think Georgia's more likely to show up for teams that are highly ranked rather than teams they are expecting to win. They just kind of cakewalk. And
Yep.
so that's kind of what I'm expecting. But we'll see.
All right. So next we have best coach, and I think that's gonna go to my most improved team, which is Eli Drinkowitz. Uh, I mean, he's a funny looking guy, but I think he's the best coach right now. Um, I think I said this earlier, but taking a team that was 2-3 last year to 5-0, pretty impressive. I mean, it it kind of sucks because I say he's the best coach, but at the same time, like you look at that Kansas State game, they had that 5 yard delay of game penalty that almost cost them the game, that moved it from a
Yeah,
56-yard field goal to a 60. Like he could have single-handedly lost in that game from not being aware of the clock, right?
yeah,
Um, but I mean, they're similar to Georgia as in they've kind of played to their competition, strangely enough. But man, I mean, he's the best coach in the of September.
yeah.
I don't I don't know how. I really don't know how. It kind of
It's
pains
like
me to say,
it's
but
one of those things that I never thought I'd say that.
no.
No, like it doesn't make any
I
sense.
it makes zero sense, right? I mean, that could very well not last long because man, they have, let's see, one, two. By the time we do the October award show, they're gonna have three ranked games. They will have played three ranked
Who are
games.
they playing? I know
They play
LSU.
LSU, which should not be ranked, but that's
Yeah.
Kentucky. Then they
Okay.
play South Carolina, and then they play Georgia November 4th. So that might be in November, the November awards, or it might be October,
I
depending on when we
think
record.
I think best case scenario is 3-1 in that. Most
Yeah,
likely 2-2.
I would agree.
Would
Because
not be
I mean they
shocked.
could lose all three of those ranked games easy.
Yeah.
I mean they're gonna beat Missouri because
Really,
Missouri
any
can't watch
they'll win
anybody.
at
But
least one of those games. Most
yeah,
likely, they'll beat South Carolina.
yeah,
But the LSU, Kentucky, and Georgia games,
yeah,
I think
that's
they'll
tough.
win one of those. I think they'll
Yeah,
win one of those. But
I mean I'm pretty sure they're at home against Missouri, so that's huge. But they're on the road against Kentucky and Georgia, so.
yeah,
But I mean, I don't know. They've played so close to their competition, but at the same time, they're undefeated. Um, I think he's done a good job
yeah,
taking the team last year that was so inconsistent to another inconsistent team that's winning games this year. But
yeah,
honorable mention, uh, Mark Stoops, unfortunately.
yeah.
Um,
I don't know. It is pretty impressive that he's
Lane
beat Florida.
Kiffin, I'd say
I will say it is pretty impressive that Mark Stoops has beaten Florida 3 years in a
three
row.
times. Oh my gosh, yeah,
But I will also say that these have been horrible Florida teams,
yeah. But we can't
and
beat
it's
him,
kind of
so
just more so. It's less. It's not the saying that it's not impressive. It's less. It's more so he's getting the job. He's doing what he should be doing. He's beating bad
yeah,
Florida teams. Well, then, which is funny too, because they were ranked every single time they played. But to be
right.
fair, in all three of those times, they shouldn't have been ranked. Uh, but it's impressive that he's been able to do that. It's still funny though that he can't beat Tennessee, which, to be fair, Tennessee has been a better
Yeah.
team than Florida every single one of those years. But
But yeah, I mean, see, a 5-0 start for a Kentucky team that has such inconsistent quarterback play is pretty impressive.
yeah,
I mean, the defense looks pretty dang good. Uh,
Yeah,
so yeah,
and
I'd
run
say
game's pretty good, but
yeah, I'd say Mark Stoops and Lane Kiffin my honorable mentions
yeah,
for September.
I'm gonna have to say Drinkowitz is also my best coach for September, just because a lot of what Trevor said, so I don't want to rehash too much. But he's gotten his team to where I did not think they would be right now. I did not think they'd be 5-0. I would have probably been thinking 4-1, 3-2. So it's impressive. He's gotten them ranked. Now, will he be the best coach at the end of the year? That's to be determined. I don't think so. I think the train will derail at some point this season, if I'm being honest. But at the moment, he's the best coach. And this isn't like, of course, Nick Saban and Kirby Smart are better coaches,
Yeah,
but just the way they're just right now, this month, specifically this month, he's been the most impressive coach. And Trevor brought up the whole thing with the Kansas State game where he almost screwed them out of the game. That kind of brings up red flags. So I don't know. A lot of it is probably his team is good. He's got a good team. So it's more so a showing of how good his recruiting is. I don't necessarily think he is like a legendary coach or anything. I just think he's done a good job this month. But
he's the perfect coach for Missouri.
yeah,
Like the absolute perfect. I mean, they're not gonna win anything,
yeah.
right?
He's
I
gotten them
mean,
to I will say it's impressive. Every year he's gotten them to a bowl, I think,
yeah,
that he's been coaching, or most every years, at least the past 2 years. Which to be
yeah,
fair,
they were
they've only won
technically
like six
last
or
year,
seven games.
right?
But if you can at least do that at Missouri consistently, that's a pretty good coach. I think he'll be at Missouri as long as he can keep getting them to bowl games every year. I think
Yep.
he'll be at Missouri for a while, unless for some reason they get stupid and think that they're going to actually win the SEC and think, oh, we're just going 7 or 6 wins a year. We need to fire him and try and get someone better. This is the best thing they've got that they're
Yep.
going to ever get, so they need to realize that and not fire him. I mean,
I doubt he'll get a bigger job offer either. I mean,
yeah.
uh, I don't think that he's gonna get something
The thing with
something bigger than
Drinkowitz, the only thing
Missouri.
with him is he can't beat the best teams in the SEC so far in his career. He's been
Yeah.
able to beat South Carolina pretty consistently. I think he's beaten Arkansas pretty consistently. So he's done a good job with those two games, but he can't beat Tennessee. He hasn't done it yet. He can't beat Georgia and Kentucky. I'm not sure if he's beaten Kentucky I know he hasn't beaten Kentucky every year, if he has. So
Yeah.
it's kind of just like we'll see. We'll see if he can get over those humps this year. I hope not against Tennessee.
Mhm.
I wouldn't mind seeing him beat Kentucky or Georgia though. So we'll see. We'll see how he pans out the rest of the season. But yeah,
I mean, we're not even mentioning like I was gonna say he can't really recruit, but he got that 5-star wide receiver Luther Burden.
yeah.
That's absolutely going crazy right now. He's got 644 receiving yards. Um, and I think that leads the SEC. Um, it might be
I saw
one of the
something
his.
that said that he was number 10 in the Heisman race right now, according to some metrics.
I mean, yeah, I mean he's playing really really well. I think he's a 5-star. I think they got him on some like huge NIL deal or something. But yeah, I mean, Drinkowitz is doing good for Missouri, and he's coached them well so far this year, I'd say. All right, so next up we have the SEC MVP. Um, my MVP is the leader of the 3-2 LSU Tigers. Jaden Daniels is my MVP of the SEC right now. Um, you're looking at, I mean, let's just say they're 5-0, right? He is in the Heisman race, easily. I mean, he's third in the nation in passing yards right now with 1,710. I mean, he's single-handedly keeping the Tigers in games. Obviously, they're not winning a lot of games right now, but he's keeping them in them. Uh, Obviously, we talked about the terrible defense. Not really gonna get into that, but I honestly, in my opinion, he's much improved from last year even. Um,
Just
I
sucks
mean,
because
he's
his
got
team is not.
yes, his team has gotten worse, obviously, but I mean, he's gotten a lot better since Arizona State, let alone last year. Like we shut him down. Our defense, Tennessee's defense, shut him down last year. But he's really really balled out so far this year. And I mean, without him, their backup is pretty good because he got Jaden Daniels got hurt at the end of last season. And I think their backup won a couple games for him, including the bowl game. But I mean, you're looking at LSU without him, and I mean, who knows where they're at, right?
Yeah,
I mean, they're not competitive in that Ole Miss game at all. So yeah, I mean, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the nation right now, which is kind of crazy to say considering that SEC doesn't have that many good quarterbacks this year. But
yeah,
yeah, I think he's I easily my MVP. Now, I mean, I'll say Spencer Rattler and Brock Bowers are both honorable mentions for me because you look at Georgia's offense without Brock Bowers, uh, they're not able to do anything really. He's their go-to for everything. Spencer Rattler is pretty much in the same situation as Jaden Daniels, but yeah, I'll pass it to you.
yeah. It's kind of funny. The two best quarterbacks so far this season in the SEC, like from a statistical standpoint, I guess,
Hmm.
are both on teams that have not looked great. And so mine is Spencer Rattler because, in my point of view, right now the MVP isn't necessarily the best player in the SEC because if I was gonna pick maybe the best player in the SEC, I probably wouldn't even picked an offensive player. I'd probably pick some random like I don't even know who I'd pick. But to me, when I think of MVP, at least right now during the season, I'm thinking most valuable player to the team. And so that makes me think of Spencer Rattler because without him, in my opinion, they're 1-4 right now, or
Hmm.
1-4. Which to be fair, they're what, 2-3 right now?
Yeah.
So it's like a one game difference. But you look at all the games they've lost, minus or you look at the games that they've played. The Mississippi State game, they don't win that without Rattler. The Furman game, they could probably win that without Rattler, but I mean it's an FCS team. Then
Right.
you have North Carolina, Tennessee, and Georgia, all three losses. Now with the North Carolina game, they lost by I don't remember the exact score, but I think they lost by 10 or a little bit more than 10. So
It
not
was
great.
31-17,
Yeah.
North Carolina. Yeah.
So around quick maths like 14, 13
14.
points, right?
Hmm.
13, 14,
14, yeah.
14 points. So not great, but like he still put up pretty good offensive numbers in every single one of the games, and his offensive line's not doing him any favors. The defense isn't doing him any favors. And so specifically, I want to look at the Georgia game. Georgia, who is statistically one of the best defenses in the SEC, he was able to perform against them, and he even got a lead against them for the first half. And so to me, he's just looked impressive this year. And honestly, if you put him on a better SEC, I'd say if you put him on a better SEC team right now, he would easily be the best quarterback in the SEC
Yeah.
just because he just have the pieces all around him. Right now, all he has is Leggett. His
Yeah, he's
other,
got no weapon. He's got absolutely no weapons.
the
His second best wide receiver is hurt right now.
yeah,
So,
and he's got a D2 running back with him.
yeah.
He just doesn't have much going for him. He's kind of just carrying his team on his back, and this O line is so bad that he keeps getting sacked. He doesn't have time. In that Tennessee game, started feeling bad for him. Was even though like I don't know, I don't feel too bad for him because of the stuff he said about Tennessee and last year. But it's just like he's just getting hit constantly. And to be fair, Tennessee has a really good D line, but they were just getting in there. He could not do anything. Tennessee shut him down. That was easily probably his worst performance of the season. And but outside of that game, he's played a great season. And without him, I think they'd be in a worse position. And really, as they get healthier, I think they'll slowly get better and better as the season goes on because he'll the players will get healthier. The all line will hopefully for them start getting back together, and they'll get some of the hurt players back. I think the Florida game that's coming up is going to be a real test to see. see where their what their trajectory for the season is because both teams, both Florida and South Carolina, kind of not in great positions right now. So we'll just see. I think they could win. I think they could lose that. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. I don't think judging Florida off of the Tennessee win is a really good idea just because the history
Nope.
between that game. I really
They've
think
looked
Tennessee's a better
absolutely like
team.
garbage other than that game. So
Tennessee's a better team, but just it's just like clockwork. Tennessee's going to play one of their worst games, but well, I wouldn't necessarily say this year I think it'll probably be our worst game is that game. But Tennessee
hopefully,
usually likes to if they are going to play a good game, they're still going to lose. But Florida, their best game every year. If you look back probably the past 10 years, most 9 times out of 10 or 8 times out of 10, Florida's best game of the season was probably against Tennessee. I mean, there's some exceptions to that, but I would just say that that's not a really good gauge of how good Florida is. You look at that Kentucky game, that's more of a better gauge, and the Utah game. Utah's not a great team, honestly,
and
looking
guess
back,
what?
and they got killed by them. So,
Both of those games were on the road.
yeah, they're a horrible road
I saw
team.
something where like Billy Napier's like 1-14 or 1-14 on the road or something crazy like that. Maybe not Billy Napier, but like the last 15 road games they've had, they're one and
I
14,
saw
which
something
is
about that
insane.
too. They've been horrible on the road.
And funny, you should mention Florida and South Carolina because the very last award is the dumpster fire award, and I have Shane Beamer and Billy Napier as my dumpster fires right now. Head coaches of South Carolina and Florida. Shane Beamer
Beamer
really,
ball,
really,
baby, Beamer
really,
ball.
really hyped up this team in the offseason. I mean, both of them are clowns, right?
Yeah,
But this guy's a meme. This guy's one of the biggest memes in the college football world. He really hyped up this South Carolina team in the offseason. And to be fair, and in all honesty, they have one of the toughest schedules in the country, easily the toughest schedule in the SEC. Um, I I I don't care. Like I think he's not doing a good job with this team. I think he's a pitiful coach.
Butch Jones
Um,
2.0.
and same thing with Billy Napier. I
Yeah,
mean, they're
you could
both.
really both remind me a lot of Butch Jones. They win,
And you know what?
they'll
I
win,
really hope. Go ahead. Go ahead.
they'll win random games that they shouldn't, but for the most part, they're gonna underperform, and they're not gonna get
Yeah.
you over the hump. Like Butch
Yeah.
Jones, he beat Georgia and Florida that one year, but then loses to South Carolina and Vanderbilt at the end of the year. These two coaches are the exact same. They both get
Yep.
miracle wins against Tennessee. South Carolina gets a miracle win against Clemson as well, but they're still not good teams. They just decide to show up one week, but then don't show up the rest, just
Yeah.
like Butch Jones.
Beamer was able to gloss over the offensive line woes this offseason. This offseason, he lost tons of talent to the transfer portal, including Marshawn Lloyd, who is balling out at USC right now. USC senior, I should say. Billy Napier has been able to recruit. He has not been able to develop. So far in September, they are my dumpster fires. I think they continue to get worse throughout the season. And I hope they both stay on as head coaches in the SEC East for years to come,
Yep.
because
I
that
think
means Tennessee will be
well, Tennessee
better off for
did
them.
lose to Billy Napier in Gainesville
Yeah,
this
well,
year.
we're
Well,
ignoring
no,
that.
just
We're
just
ignoring.
let me finish. While he may have done that, I still think that he gives us the best chance to beat them in Gainesville just
He
because of
does.
how bad I think he is as a coach.
I agree.
But
Uh,
then again,
both
Florida
teams,
plays their best game
yeah,
against Tennessee every year, so
yeah. Both these
happened
teams
last year
are
too.
well. Florida's 3-2, I think. South Carolina is 2-3.
Yeah, but
Um,
both these teams do have a tough schedules, so
they
the
do.
season's only going to get tougher for them.
Yep.
All right, that leads into my dumpster fire. While not the exact same as Trevor, it's a little similar. My dumpster fire is a specific area of South Carolina's team that's not their head coach, their offensive line. It is bad. And while, yes, this is because of injuries, um, it's still pretty bad. I
They were
mean,
bad at spring game, from
yeah,
what I've heard.
you just got to be able to protect your quarterback. He's getting sacked so many times. I don't remember really what the exact number is, but they have allowed the most sacks in the country. To be fair, they have faced teams like Georgia and Tennessee and North Carolina, three top teams in the country. But even against the other teams, they still allowed a lot of sacks.
Pretty
And
sure they've allowed 23 sacks the whole season. And I'm gonna say one thing about North Carolina's defensive line before I get to but before you finish real quick.
uh-huh.
Um, North Carolina sacked Rattlers 9 times week 1, right? They play App State the very next week and App State's quarterback once.
Yeah. To be
So
fair, I think South Carolina's offensive line has gotten better throughout the year, but that's still not good. They're still not good. They went from dog crap to human crap is kind of, I guess, the first thing that comes to mind. Like both are bad. I mean, actually, I don't know. Human crap might be worse. I don't know. But did you get what I mean? It's just like bad from bad to less bad. And while the Tennessee game doesn't really show it, the Georgia game was kind of impressive considering they held Georgia to less, which I don't know, maybe that's because Tennessee's defensive line is better than Georgia's, maybe. I don't know. But Tennessee did sack Rattler more than Georgia did. So I don't know. They're just pretty
I,
bad overall. They can't protect their quarterback. You see that funny little meme on the screen, how many times did I get sacked tonight? It's just not a good look. They're really if their O line doesn't get better, they're not gonna be able to get that much more wins this season, to be
s-
honest.
so with how bad Georgia's schedule has been so far this season, as in the skill of opponents,
Hmm.
they only have 8 sacks on the whole year.
Dang,
Uh,
that's pretty
to put that in
embarrassing.
perspective, we have 22. Um, so yeah, I'd say South Carolina's offense was still bad against Georgia. Georgia
Yeah,
just does not sack the quarterback, so they're
yeah.
second worst in the SEC next to Florida.
And Tennessee's what, first, second? They're probably first
Yeah,
or second
Tennessee
behind
is
maybe
first.
A&M. I think A&M might have more, but it's
No,
close.
Tennessee has 22 sacks. A&M has 20.
Okay, yeah, I knew it was close. I
Um,
wasn't sure who had more.
Statistically, Tennessee's defense is the best in the SEC, but we're not going to talk about that. That's all
Yeah. I hope
right.
I hope they are the best defense in the FCC. Do I
Hey,
think that?
we'll see in
No.
October. Hey, we will see in October.
If Tennessee's
They could
defense wins
win.
them games, I'm gonna be so
Yeah,
happy.
that might be it could be the best defense in October. Looking at our schedule, defenses make or break if we win games or not in October. So
Let's just say I've not been too proud of Tennessee's offense so far this season. They've had their moments. I've been very proud of Tennessee's defense for the most
yeah.
part this year, outside of the Florida game, which even the Florida game, the second half they played good. You
Mhm.
could maybe attribute that partly to Florida kind of letting up in the second half, but the first half was horrible in that game. But outside of that game, they've played a great on defense. They've just been able to pick up the slack for the offense, which is like the exact opposite of what was last year.
Yeah. Right.
It's weird.
Yeah, I agree. But anyways, a little bit off topic there. If you don't have anything else, do you have anything else?
No, that's it. That's it.
All right. So with that, we're gonna wrap up the Trev and Lev September award show. Thank you all for joining us and for tuning in. We're excited to keep doing this SEC Boys podcast episodes. And looking forward, I'm really looking forward to this October show. It's gonna be really fun with a lot of SEC games being played. But yeah, with that, this was the SEC Boys. Thank you all for tuning in. Catch you all next time.
Don't forget to like and subscribe too.
Yes.
Peace out and go Vols.